This is CBC Vancouver News.
Another family member actually threw up when she saw that.
Show canceled. A group that sold a t-shirt making a joke about victims of a notorious serial murderer will not be performing in New Westminster.
I'm tired of people trying to normalize, abuse against women.
Plus,
graffiti in the walls, dog feces in the hallways.
a stark warning on homelessness and affordable housing in BC.
About 1,350 SROs lost by 2030 to rent increases.
What will the province do to get more people homes? And a BC nurse and her dogs get a too close encounter with a moose. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A BC Comedy Club has canceled an act after concerns were raised about some of the group's material and merchandise. Danger Cats is an Alberta-based comedy group that some people say has gone way too far by mocking Indigenous trauma, including victims of serial murderer Robert Pickton. As Liam Britton reports, families, Indigenous comedians, and BC's Premier are slamming the group. A warning for you, some of the material in this story may be offensive and unsettling.
A New Westminster Comedy Club has canceled a planned show that some say is offensive, including the families of victims of convicted serial killer Robert Pickton. The situation even caught the attention of the Premier.
I just really encourage this group to think carefully about this sad attempt at humor.
The group is Danger Cats, a comedy act touring across Canada and boasting a big social media presence. Some of their material has caused outcry, including using residential schools as a punchline, and the shirt they've sold making a joke out of Pickton victims. Pickton was convicted of killing 6 women, although the DNA of 33 was found on the site of his farm. Many of his victims were Indigenous. Lorelei Williams, whose cousin Tanya Holick was named as one of Pickton's victims, says the group has caused hurt and offense.
It has caused a lot of heartache and pain, especially the t-shirt referring to my cousin as a flavor. It's been horrifying. It's very disturbing.
Danger Cats were set to perform in New Westminster next month at Rick Bronson's House of Comedy. But now the show will not go on. The club issued a statement on Facebook, but it's no longer visible. That statement said it prioritized the well-being of staff, performers, and patrons, and while it values free expression, it realized the material caused discomfort, which was not the club's goal. When reached, organizers had no comment, other than the show is off. Danger Cats shows in Winnipeg were also canceled recently.
For me, I'm just tired of seeing material like this and people thinking it as if it's like art.
And some local Indigenous comedians say they're glad the show here will also not go on.
I'm tired of people trying to normalize abuse against women, violence, racism, homophobia, transphobia.
Mark agrees comedy can tackle tough subject matter, even trauma, if the approach is right.
First and foremost, trauma isn't, especially if it's not your trauma, it's not a punchline. Residential schools isn't a punchline to your joke. If you want to bring awareness to this topic and you want to do it through comedy, I think it is very possible, even if you are a white comedian, to talk about this issue from your perspective and to talk about what that all meant and how that also affected you or your community.
Williams says she's glad the show is canceled, but was hoping for an apology from the club.
Well, one of the words was discomfort. It caused discomfort. It's like, no, you caused harm and pain.
Danger Cats posted a statement to Instagram. They say they are canceling multiple shows in Canada and the U.S. Members say they and the venues they were meant to play have received threatening messages. As for the Pickton shirt, they say it has been removed from their store, and they're donating proceeds to Ukraine. CBC News reached out to the group, but didn't hear back right away. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Low-income and vulnerable people in Vancouver's downtown east side keep facing fewer affordable housing options. And as Bill Puri explains, the latest report by an advocacy group predicts a dramatic jump in homelessness in the next 6 years.
Housing for many who live in rundown units is simply better than nothing.
It's depressing, graffiti in the walls, dog feces in the hallways.
That said, in coming years, Vancouver is on track to lose up to 860 modular housing units as their leases expire or new development moves in. The city already has 144 units in storage.
And even with these 39 units here, what's going to happen to them? Where are they going to go? And people could be housed in them.
As well, advocates expect hundreds of single-room occupancy units will be lost to rent increases.
Yeah, about 1,350 lost by 2030 to rent increases. And there's no housing for people to go to. That's where you end up with another 10 cities.
A newly published report by the Carnegie Housing Project projects the number of unhoused people in Vancouver will hit 4,700 by 2030. The message is simple. Governments need to take steps to prevent the loss of housing. Housing that's affordable if you live on social assistance or on a pension. The report makes 42 recommendations. Among 7 priority recommendations to stop the loss of affordable housing, the report suggests governments readjust their definition of social housing.
But according to the definitions being used by provincial and federal governments, social housing might only be affordable to someone making $85,000 a year. For someone who's living in poverty, $85,000 a year is so far out of reach that it's unbelievable.
The NDP says it's reviewing a recent court decision that said the provincial government, not the city, is responsible for SRO rent controls.
Our main goal is to make sure we can get the most vulnerable people indoors, get them the supports they need. That's our focus, and we're going to continue to do that work.
Those in need of better housing have their own suggestion.
Stop building condos for the up and coming. Stop building homes that people can't afford. Start looking at, proper housing.
Advocates say by the end of the decade, governments need to create better possibilities for people on the street. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
The federal government has settled a claim with the Matsqui First Nation in the Fraser Valley. It will receive $59 million for the historic loss of reserve land given to the Vancouver Power Company, now BC Hydro, in 1908.
It'll help our nation with its goals of delivering on the wishes of our citizens. And for the individual Matsqui members, it will mean a financial break.
Matsqui filed the claim in 2010 and began negotiating with Ottawa in 2017 ahead of this year's settlement. A BC lawyer has been ordered to pay for citing fake cases that were created by ChatGPT. The cases would have provided compelling precedent for a divorced father to take his children to China had they been real. Our Jason Proctor explains what happened.
So, Jason, what happened here with the lawyer?
Okay, so it comes in the context of this divorce case between a multimillionaire and his ex-wife. And so in an application to have his children travel to China that was put into the court last December, his lawyer filed this brief, basically, that relied on 2 cases, both in which mothers were able to take their children out of town, out of country, which, would sound good. But once his ex-wife's lawyers started looking into it, they were like, well, we can't find these cases anywhere. So they asked his lawyer, hey, can you provide us with copies of these cases? According to the documents that I've seen, she goes, looks into it, realizes these cases don't exist. They were, invented by ChatGPT. Which apparently she'd used to help her put together this application. According to these court documents, she wants to withdraw the cases and doesn't ultimately rely on them in making her argument, but it still becomes a thing before the court because this application went before the court at some point, and the judge says this is super concerning because it has happened once that we know of in the United States involving a lawyer who ended up begging for mercy from a court, and it's just a concerning thing here.
So what else did the judge say about this?
Well, so basically, the lawyer for the ex-wife wanted special costs, which is for reprehensible misconduct by a lawyer against this woman. The judge in the case said, I don't think she actually tried to deceive anybody, and she was apparently mortified by the fact that the whole kind of issue came out and it's made headlines now. But the judge has said that she should have to pay for the time that the ex-wife's lawyers had to take in order to figure out that they were fake. And he's also said, you need to go through all of your cases and figure out if there's any other fakes.
No, super interesting case. Thank you so much, Jason.
A new report shows costs for Toronto to host its 2026 FIFA World Cup matches have jumped from about $45 million to $380. Vancouver is hosting 7 games, and it's unclear right now how much those will cost. The BC government insists the games will boost the city's economy.
We're going to have a lot more visitors here, so the revenues that we're going to make from these games have gone up substantially. About $1 billion in economic activity. We have about over 300,000 people coming during the matches.
Popham says Vancouver's final costs should be available soon. BC Ferries has released renderings of what could be some new ships. Have a look at these. It says the new vessels will hold 600 more people and 100 more cars, replacing up to 6 current ferries. They'll be designed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by using bio and renewable fuels, and will include a battery hybrid propulsion system that will allow for conversion to electric in the future. The plan is for the new vessels to hit the water in 2029. Well, still on the water, have you ever wondered who pilots the False Creek ferries? Well, they're looking for candidates for the upcoming busy season, and our Caroline Chan went to see if she has the right stuff.
Have you ever driven a boat before?
No.
Oh.
I paddle.
Well, there you go.
But I think it's a little different.
Not much.
Hi, I'm Caroline, skipper in training.
Hi, Caroline. I'm Lowenball. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Falls Creek Ferries. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
I hear you want to come down and learn how to drive a boat.
I do.
All right. Well, step into the office.
Thank you. Oh, where should I go?
So, well, no, this is your seat right up here.
This is my seat?
This is your seat. So this is the steering wheel, the throttle. You've got our VHF radio up there. You've got all our navigation lights up there. And why don't we take it for a spin?
For real?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
It's alive.
It's alive.
Yeah. All right, we're ready to take off. It's just like driving a car. Do you have your driver's license?
Yes.
All right. Don't worry, I won't let you crash.
Okay.
Let's just get out of the other ferry's way here. You can see that it's a pretty busy harbor. There's lots of things to pay attention to. There's other boats, there's other ferries. There's paddlers, there's kayaks, there's rental boats, there's dragon boats, there's outriggers, there's speed boats, you name it. So we always have to keep our head on a swivel. Take the wheel.
Okay.
Skipper in training,
So
Caroline
if we go,
Chan.
let's go left.
Yeah.
I'm driving a boat.
You're driving the Falls Creek Ferry.
This is awesome. So how long do you have to train before you get to actually take passengers?
So before we even hire anyone, we look for boating experience or competency. Once you're hired, we do 6 days of on-the-water training. And it just takes practice, like anything. And feel free to steer. You're driving. I'm just supervising here. You go where you want to go.
You have a lot of faith in me.
Well, it's nice to have faith in humanity. It's kind of what this job has taught me, is that people are pretty much good and nice overall.
Well, this is a very nice office.
I like it. I'd rather do this than work behind a desk. Hey, Tootsie the Dave, can you give us a wave as you go by here?
Sure. Also, Kai was trying to get a hold of.
There's a lot of details to this job that people might not expect, right? It's a bit of an unusual job. Do you want to do a ballet move?
Like now?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Okay.
So I need you to push down on the throttle a little bit more, and then I need you to crank the wheel all the way over to the left. Go, 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 as fast as you can. Now, it's more impressive with more than one boat, but it's still a donut. And then you have to give the shaven a haircut on the horn. Even on the calm days, you do need to pay attention to the wind and the weather. These boats are quite tall, so the wind affects them a lot. So if you're not careful, you'll get blown around. I think a lot of people can attest to the desire to be on the water. It's just a nice place to be, and it's like a little break. It's a little meditative. It's calm. You get your boating fix in without having to own a boat. And start turning to the left. I'm going to talk you through landing. Promise I won't let you crash. Pull the throttle back until it clicks, just like that. And now you can start turning to the left just a little bit, not too much. And now I want you to pull the throttle till it's straight up and backwards. You did it. You're hired.
Yay!
The BC government formally apologizes to the Doukhobor community for wrongs committed 7 decades ago. The province is also offering compensation, but some say it's not enough. That story's next. John Robert Giscombe definitely made his mark in BC. He was a black prospector who died in 1907. Arthi Thayaparan has more on his namesake trail.
From Port Alberni to Vancouver to Nelson, there are plenty of places named after European colonizers here in BC. But in northern BC, a trail, road, school, and rural community are named in honor of a black man and a small but significant contribution to the province's gold rush.
In British Columbia, we have a tendency to think all these names of all these places and things are of white guys. And it's really refreshing to discover that they are not all white guys. When you do research in archives or when you're reading history books, people that aren't white are not very often mentioned. And so it's easy to think that they weren't here, but they were here and in significant numbers in some cases.
John Robert Giscombe left his hometown of St. Mary, Jamaica in 1854 to work on California's Panama Railway. Once that was done, he became enamored with the possibility of finding his fortune in gold. But California at the time was ripe with discrimination. So when BC's first governor, James Douglas, invited people to settle on Vancouver Island, Giscombe and hundreds of black people left the States and made their way to Canada.
Where Governor Douglas greeted them happily because they didn't like America very much, and he was afraid that British Columbia was about to be annexed by the United States. He was happy to have people who did not like America in his fledgling, kind of bailiwick.
There's a little bit of speculation that James Douglas himself his mother was black or half black, and so that he may have had some kind of personal drive to welcome black men into essentially the colony he's running.
Now here's where Giscombe's journey really begins, as documented in an 1863 article. With his travel partner Henry McDane from the Bahamas and a Clately Tenay guide, they decided to prospect the Peace River country for gold. They had some side adventures where they helped look for travelers who had succumbed to cannibalism in the middle of winter, but that's another story. Ice and high water levels impeded their journey to Fort Macleod when the guide suggested a shortcut which significantly reduced their travel time. Once they reached a Hudson's Bay Company fort on the other side, Giscombe said they were greeted by a gun salute in honor of being the first non-Indigenous people to travel via the trail. That trail, which Giscombe publicized, became known as Giscombe Portage and made travel and access to northern BC much easier during the gold rush.
He makes a big difference when it comes to how people are accessing the north. So suddenly you're cutting off huge amounts of travel time, a lot of expense. And even today, you're still using the Giscombe Portage a little bit when you're heading through this area. It's still a major traffic corridor into the north. So it really had long-lasting implications.
After his journey, not much else is known about Giscombe's life, but records indicate he actually struck gold as a prospector and lived the rest of his days a rich man in Victoria. Arthi Thayaparan, CBC News, Vancouver.
It is an apology decades in the making. The BC government has officially acknowledged historical wrongs on a little-known group of exiled Russians. 70 years ago, government officials forcibly removed some 200 Doukhobor children from their homes. Lindsay Duncombe has more on the apology and the compensation that some say is not enough.
There is healing in these Russian songs, a way for Betty Kabatov to acknowledge what was taken from her.
They wouldn't let us speak Russian. I got strapped every time I did.
She was just 8 years old when a police officer took her from her bed, forced to spend 4.5 years here at a former tuberculosis sanitarium with 200 other Doukhobor children, members of a group known as the Sons of Freedom, Russian Christian pacifists who lived communally and clashed with the government.
And they tried to knock the Doukhobоrism out of me.
Their parents visited twice a month, families separated by a chain link fence.
Today, on behalf of the province of British Columbia, we acknowledge and apologize for these past injustices.
This apology comes after decades of lobbying by survivors.
Where children paid the price for the conflicts of adults.
The Sons of Freedom were known for nude protests and setting their homes on fire in a rejection of materialism. This retired law professor says lingering distrust of Doukhobors likely delayed reconciliation.
I suspect if you tried to do it in the 80s or 90s, there might have been opposition in the Kootenays and that part of British Columbia.
The apology comes with $10 million in compensation, much of it for education. $3.75 million will go to a fund for survivors. Not good enough, says Kabatov.
We all deserve personal compensation.
Her niece confronted the premier about how the money will be spent.
Maybe the voice that was taken away from them 71 years ago can actually now be heard by you. Would you commit that to us, Mr. Premier?
Absolutely. We'll work with you to make this right.
Work the survivors hope will happen soon, given how long they have suffered. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Victoria.
There's a live look at the Port of Vancouver. After some snow, we get rain. Darius Madavi will have your BC-wide forecast after this.
I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 12th, join CBC Vancouver's Michelle Elliott at the YWCA City Shifts free event, Reimagining Our Cities, Advancing Equity in a Polarized Time. For more information, visit ywcavan.org. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
A BC travel nurse in the Yukon recently had a terrifying encounter while out walking her 2 dogs. She was videoing one of her animals enjoying the snow when another creature showed up.
I took these 2 dogs and we were just out for a walk, and I had my phone out because the dog was jumping. There's lots of snow, so he's jumping like a rabbit. I thought it was cute, so I was filming him. And then he started barking up a tree, so I figured there was a squirrel. And next thing I knew, I heard this big loud, like a horse. And I looked up and there was a giant moose standing there, and I already had my phone out. So I was like, oh, cute, like I'll take a video. And next thing I knew, he was like running towards us. Don't even know what happened after that, but the moose ran away. So I was pretty scared. It all happened so fast. And then all of a sudden it was over. And I was like, did that just happen? Like he came so close to me, but yeah, it happened.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
A day of snowfall across parts of the South Coast and beyond. Darius Madavi, our climate and science specialist, here to tell us what's next.
Just more rain. Classic Vancouver. You know, get a little bit of snow, not much sticking around on the ground, but then wiped away by the rain. And that's going to be the story you can see here already now across most of the downtown Vancouver area and parts of Metro Vancouver. We've seen all the snow that we're going to, and the rain is coming to wash it away, anything that has stuck on the ground, which is not much. And then more rain is on the way throughout tomorrow before Environment Canada is saying a small chance of flurries again on Thursday. Now, it's showing up in a few more models than it was just yesterday, but it's very much uncertain. So for now, don't count on the snow to return Thursday, although it wasn't much snow at all. But if you're in other parts of the province, plenty of snow today, plenty of snow still on the way. We still have those warnings in place for the interior mountain passes, warning of up to 30 centimeters of snow from today through Thursday, as well as some very gusty winds. So be aware of that if you're going to be doing any traveling. Now, I'm going to show the conditions map a little bit earlier than usual today because I just want to emphasize across the province how much activity there is. Now, all of these aren't necessarily guarantees of that precipitation, but for most places, you should get at least a hint of it, and there's not going to be much sunshine across the province tomorrow, so be aware of that, even as temperatures do slowly start to creep back up from the very chilly ones that we've had. Now, in terms of accumulations, most of that coming at those higher elevations, not really anything more coming for Vancouver in the next 48 hours, according to this model, but again, some others saying a little bit of snow possible on Thursday. And if we zoom into the south coast, you can see along all those mountain ranges, all that snow that we're going to get, which is fantastic news for the snowpack. Because again, the south coast, the lowest compared to normal across the province. If we zoom into Vancouver, you can see not really anything else coming in the next 48 hours, maybe a little bit more as we get into the wee morning hours, but really not much. The big story across the south coast over the next few days is going to be the heavy rain, as much as 50 to 70 millimeters expected across some parts of the south coast, so be prepared for that, including here in Vancouver, where it could be heavy as we see really just some precipitation over the next few days. If we zoom in to the local mountains, you can see that rain starting to creep up, but freezing levels should stay low enough that it's pretty much just snow on the mountains, although we do get a lot of rain here in the city. And if we take a look at our 5-day forecast, you see there's possible showers on Thursday. I'm not going to rule it out yet, but I wouldn't say it's too likely as of now, but lots of rain on the way.
Okay, something to watch out for. Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
That is your late news for Tuesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Good night.